Hey guys, it's good to see you all at Student Ministry at FBA. This morning, I have a couple special guests with us that we're going to interview over the next couple weeks. So you see 4 different snippets, and they'll be joining us for each Sunday morning video for our missions focus in that particular week. And so we're going to interview them, and you'll get to see a little bit about them. They're part of our missions team here at First Baptist, and so they're very near and dear to our hearts, and we're thrilled that they were able to come and spend just a couple minutes with us. And so, having said that, can you guys introduce yourselves and tell us who you are?
Yeah, for sure. We're Brian and Ariel Dicks. We're missionaries in Budapest, Hungary, which is Hungary is Central Eastern Europe, so think maybe to the east of Germany, but to the west of Russia. But our focus is international student ministry. We do that primarily through the church, so I'm also a youth pastor of middle school and high school students at Danube International Church. We've got about 20 high school kids and about the same number of middle school students. But we meet weekly with those guys, but we also have some exposure to an international Christian school in the area as well. But our calling is for students in this international context. Some of them are missionary kids. Some of them are just kids whose family are there on business or with the government. So it's from literally across the globe, different continents, different reasons. But they're all there at the church, and we're excited to have that ministry.
So this is kind of an off question.
Yeah.
When you're ministering, what language are you ministering in? Because you're in Hungary.
Yeah.
So you speak Hungarian.
A little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who speaks better Hungarian? Okay.
By far.
Okay.
I know how to say I don't speak Hungarian.
Okay.
I know how to say, can you speak English, and where's the bathroom?
Those are very critical.
It's important.
Those are important
I feel like there should be something in there about
She's
coffee
being a little bit modest. She does grocery shopping and that sort of thing, so she knows a lot of
I'm
vocabulary.
really good at charades. I learned how to speak non-verbally,
Okay. So what language you minister in? Is it a mix? Is it a hybrid?
We minister in English. So yeah, the church is an international church. The school is an international Christian school. So both of them operate primarily on English. Many of the students are not native English speakers, but the wide variety, or the majority of the students we have contact with, they speak very good English.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now you guys did not grow up there. So where did you grow up?
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
We both grew up in Chattanooga.
Just up the road, not far. So you're
far.
good Southerners.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, all right, we like
born
that.
and raised.
Cool. Tell us a little bit about how you came to know the Lord. What's your testimony? Because obviously, personally, you came to know Christ. Mm-hmm. So how did that work for y'all?
Well, for me personally, I feel like sometimes we talk about, well, I was born in a Christian home and saved at an early age, and it seems like sort of a boring testimony. I like to look at it as God was working on me and saving me from birth, giving me the family that He did. I grew up in a godly Christian home. Grew up in the same godly church. The first 20 years of my life, I attended the same church, and through the ministry of my family in the church, learned at a very early age who God was, what He had done, how He had created me, why I needed Him, why I was a sinner, why I needed forgiveness. And so at a very early age, I remember I was probably 6 years old or so, just laying in bed and thinking about all the things that I knew. And for whatever reason, that's when it all came together, and I realized I was a sinner. I needed God's forgiveness. So I got inside my bed as a 6-year-old and prayed and asked God to forgive my sins, dedicated my life to Him. And since then, He has continued to use the church and my family and His Word to grow my relationship with Him.
Amen.
I was also saved at an early age. I was 4, I remember, or maybe 5, after Awanas one night at our church. My sister had just gotten saved, and she was sharing with me her excitement and what it meant and the gospel story. And I'd heard it before, but she just made it so exciting and so wonderful. And I just remember the feeling of elation and excitement that I had when I finally accepted Him as my Savior in our van, in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. But I heard the phrase this weekend, someone describing their journey with the Lord as she was a believer but not a follower. And I feel like that encapsulates my life from 4 years old to about 8th grade, when the Lord reignited a love for Him in my life and showed me the importance of walking with Him daily, mm-hmm. and not just, oh yeah, I believe that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I rededicated my life at 8th grade, and it's been a wonderful walk ever since.
Wow, that's awesome. Great. Okay, now you all came to know Christ, and now you minister to teenagers that same Christ.
Yeah.
What is the path that led you all to being, hey, I came to know Christ, to now I want to share Christ with other people? How did that work in your own lives?
Well, for me, a big thing I look back on is in 9th grade, my family moved to Budapest, where we are currently. My dad worked with computers, but we had a lot of missionaries at our church who were in Budapest. And he was at a place with his business where he was able to take a year off. They needed someone who had some tech experience over in Budapest just for a year. And so our family decided together we were going to be sort of long, short-term missionaries in Budapest for a year. So we moved. I was in 9th grade. I took a couple classes at the International Christian School there. And I really experienced, I had grown up in Chattanooga my entire life, and now all of a sudden I was in a foreign country where I didn't know the language, I didn't know anybody. And it was a difficult experience, but it was also just a key experience in my life because having the teachers there at the school, being poured into by them and being a part of their ministry really left a big impact on me. And so when we returned to the States and later on in college, when I knew I wanted to teach or I wanted to have some sort of student ministry, that was instrumental in God calling me to have a similar ministry internationally.
Yeah, and I studied to be a teacher, and so when we got married, I still had a year of school left, and we were sending out resumes, and I came home and was like, "So are we doing this, or what are we doing?" So we went ahead and prayed about it, looked at all sorts of different schools, and the Lord just led us to this community, and it's been great.
Yeah,
it's been great. And as far as what led me specifically to missions, I mean, it's part of the command, right? You don't just become saved and then sit on it.
Wow, yeah.
You go and share it to everyone else.
Right.
Judea, Samaria, ends of the earth. You don't just.
And for us, that looks like the ends of the earth.
Right now, ends of the earth is Budapest for us.
Was that scary for you? Because he'd been there for a year, and then he's like, "Hey, let's go to a pretty far away place."
That's a fair question. So it was hard once we got there, but the move was exciting for me because I had never lived farther than 5 minutes from my childhood home.
Wow.
And so it was exciting. And I had actually visited Budapest for 2 weeks the summer before. And I had just this, rose-colored glasses view of it because I was a tourist. Yeah.
Yes.
So moving there, the rose-colored glasses sort of faded pretty quickly when it was like, this is life here. And now it's home and I love it. But it was hard at first.
Give me one thing. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Give me one thing that the wonder hasn't worn off yet for you of the life there in Budapest. Like, when you come back here, what do you miss? We'll talk about it a little bit more later.
This is like a 20-minute drive from our house. So just the architecture and the history and the richness of the actual location for me is just amazing. When you're walking around the city and these buildings are centuries old, and it's just. Yeah. You don't see that here, as much.
Yeah, we live in a small town about 15 minutes outside Budapest, but when you have to go into the city and you walk around for the first little bit, it seems routine because you've been there, week after week after week, but then sometimes you just look up and you're like, oh my goodness, I live here. This is crazy.
That's cool. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
You're not, I think some people look at missions and it's maybe a drudgery,
yeah.
or maybe they look at missions from the outside, maybe not missionaries, but look at the missions from the outside and say, oh, wow, I would never want to do that because I would never want to leave the comforts of my own home. Mm-hmm. But there is an exciting area, a very fulfilling area of being in the Lord's will for your life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and He makes that your comfort. So when we transitioned here for the summer, it was hard for us. I mean, that's home for us now. Mm-hmm. And so coming here it's nice to see family and visit with people we haven't seen in 2 years, but I mean, it's hard to leave our home. I mean, that's...
Yeah. Okay. Let's wrap up with something kind of fun for our first session here. We talked a little bit about what you do. We might talk a little bit more about that, maybe can you show me, can you tell me what you do, maybe in a nutshell, for a week, in a week? What's a week in the life of Brian and Ariel look like?
Yeah. Well, in addition to being the youth pastor, I'm also worship coordinator at our church. And so, which means I'm one of a team of a few worship leaders. So usually 2 or 3 Sundays a month, I'm leading worship on Sunday morning.
Wow.
And so I'll get to church early on Sunday. We'll have rehearsal, and then we'll have the worship service. So a week starts out pretty quickly. And then we have our youth group with high school on Saturday evenings.
Okay.
And so throughout the week, I'm preparing for that on Saturday evening. This last year, I was teaching a couple Bible classes at the school. And so about 4 days out of the week, I was there first thing in the morning to teach a class, and then coming home to work on youth group stuff. So it's a lot of juggling, but it's a lot of fun.
It's busy. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, fantastic. Let's wrap up with something kind of fun. Maybe more personal.
That's right.
How did you all meet?
Yeah, well, we could spend a long time on that.
Because it's a long story.
It is.
okay.
We were in the same kindergarten class.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And then
You were sizing him up from the beginning to see if he was going to be worthy
yeah.
of your love.
Yeah.
Well,
And then,
so I was homeschooled. After kindergarten, I left and was homeschooled.
You left
for
her?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Not her, just the school.
so then when he started back at the same school where I was at in 10th grade, and I remembered him from kindergarten, and we became best friends. And
Yeah.
there's a few things between there and our dating and marriage, but the rest is pretty much history.
Yeah,
We've just been best friends a long time.
Really close friends through high school. Dated just out of college, or sophomore year of college.
Mhm.
Dated for 2 years. Engaged for another year, and then got married. Been married 9 years
9
now.
years.
Wow.
Feel old.
Okay, cool. Well, fantastic. We're going to talk a couple more. We have 3 more weeks we're going to talk with them. And so this week was just kind of who they are. I want to give you an introduction. These are our missionaries in Hungary. And so I want to give you an introduction to who they are because our emphasis this month is on missions. Next session we have with them, we're going to be explaining what missions is. And then we're going to talk about what missionary life is like, what that really looks like, nuts and bolts on the field. And then we're going to wrap up because you guys have a very personal and intimate proximity to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And so the time of life that is in Ukraine right now, you all are very close to that.
Yeah.
And so we want to get you all's perspective, especially with how you're ministering to youth. And so we're going to wrap up our 4 videos with some talking about Ukraine. But thanks, guys, for being with us this week.
Yeah, of course.
We're thrilled that you're here.
Thanks so much.